is worthy to be counted among the extraordinary, one who lives with integrity, who does what is right, and who recognizes the truth, whose tongue utters no slander, who does not reproach neighbors, but feels scorn for those who act thoughtlessly, and cherishes others who behave honorably. Unwavering, this person will keep a promise even at personal expense, and will never lend money with ruthless intent or take a bribe to harm the innocent. Whoever lives this way will be remembered always. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. And life is a journey from childhood to maturity, from youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. We have come together this afternoon to celebrate the life and to mourn the loss of Ellen Chenchinsky-Deutsch. May her memory be for a blessing. Even as we grapple with the pain of her physical absence, we recall the gift of her presence in our lives. We are thankful for all that was good and true in the way that she lived, and for the precious memories which shall endure among all those who knew her and loved her. It is a daunting and ultimately impossible task to attempt to capture the depth and complexity of a human soul using the tools of the written or spoken word. This would be the case even if one were to write a book-length study of a person's life, and how much the more so in this minuscule amount of time we are given at this poignant and difficult moment. And yet, we are driven by our human need for meaning and continuity to make the attempt nonetheless. So let us acknowledge that today is the merest beginning of the process of distilling the legacy that Ellen leaves to us, a process that will continue over the coming weeks and months, and for many of us last far into the future. Reflections on Ellen's life will be offered from several different perspectives this afternoon. I will begin with a general overview, and then we'll hear from several family members and friends who will add some detail of their experience of Ellen from their own unique vantage points. Ellen Chenchinsky-Deutsch was born on February 26, 1945, at Mount Sinai Hospital, into a warm and loving extended family made up of her parents, Milton and Molly, her older brother Fred, her grandparents, and her two aunts and their families, who all shared a three-family home on Lakeview Road in Cleveland. Her father owned a bakery famous for its breads, and her mother was a devoted parent and homemaker, making sure that the children always had their basic needs met. When Ellen was 7, her family moved from their home in Cleveland to Hampshire Road in Cleveland Heights, where they continued their tradition of multi-generational living as they shared a duplex with her Aunt Ruth and her grandmother. From the time that she was quite young, Ellen displayed a strong interest in, as well as a talent for, spending time with and guiding children. As soon as she was able to take on her first work responsibilities, she consistently chose roles that involved interacting with kids in one way or another, including serving as a babysitter for the children of her 6th grade teacher, working at Mitchell's Candy Store at Euclid Heights and Coventry, and working as a counselor at a Workman's Circle summer camp. Another characteristic of Ellen's that was apparent from an early age was her love of social connections. She was known to make good use of the family telephone to keep in touch with her friends, and she even took the bold step of giving out her father's private phone number that he used exclusively in his capacity as president of the local Jewish Bakers Union, in case her friends ever wanted to reach her when their home line was otherwise occupied. Ellen was also a person who had a strong pragmatic side, and she saw that being connected to a large number of people put her in a position to help those she cared about who were not in a relationship to find their potential better half. Although most of her matchmaking attempts did not result in long-term success, the most important one did when she introduced her brother Fred to her sister-in-law Marcia, which led to a wedding within a year, a wonderful family, and a lifelong marital partnership. Ellen attended high school at Heights High and received her diploma, as it was common to do at that time, as part of a mid-year graduation ceremony in the winter of 1963. As the story goes, on that day, the flowers carried by the female students all froze due to the frigid temperature of 21 degrees below zero. Ellen continued her academic pursuits as she moved on to being a college student. And although it took her a while and some experimentation to find the right fit, she was, amazingly, still able to graduate after 4 years of study. She began at the University of Toledo, then transferred to Western Reserve University. She then decided to move to Ursuline College and finally settled on Kent State, which is where she completed her bachelor's degree. And after all that, Ellen decided, somewhat to her mother's chagrin, not to attend her own college graduation ceremony. After finishing college, Ellen set out on a long and successful career as an educator, working with early childhood and early elementary-aged children. The list of institutions to which she brought her teaching skills and insight is impressive and includes the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, Gannon Gill, the Agnon School in several iterations, Workman's Circle, the Achievement Center for Children, Council Gardens, and suburban Temple Kol Ami. Perhaps her most satisfying role involved her work for Hadassah, where she developed a curriculum to work with interfaith families who are searching for an accessible way to raise their children with a grounding in Jewish values. While Ellen was originally trained as a general and secular educator, she was always very committed to and interested in Jewish life. When she worked in Jewish institutions, even if it was not officially her responsibility, she strove to integrate Jewish content into her teaching. Eventually, in the mid-1990s, she chose to enroll at the Siegel College of Jewish Studies, where she successfully completed a master's degree in Jewish education. While a student there, she played a lead role in organizing an Israel trip for all of Cleveland's Jewish family educators. In this context, I would like to mention on a personal note that I had the pleasure of working with Ellen in 2 different professional settings. The first was at the Agnon School in 1995, where she was one of the 2nd grade general studies teachers, and I was the school rabbi. And the second took place soon after I had begun to serve as the rabbi of Congregation Kol Halev in the early 2000s. Kol Halev was then in the process of planning a new children's education program, and we hired Ellen as a consultant to help us with establishing an initial vision and structure. In both of these contexts, Ellen's high standards, her professionalism, and her creativity led to collaborations that were always enjoyable, full of learning, and focused on achieving a concrete and useful objective. At the same time that Ellen was beginning to develop her talent as an educator, she also became a mother twice over, welcoming her first daughter, Kelly, in April of 1971, and her second daughter, Josefa, in June of 1975. Not surprisingly, Ellen's natural love of children inspired her to be a devoted and caring parent to her own two daughters, even as she continued to support and teach the many other children who were part of her life during the week in the classroom. In fact, in some sense, Ellen took a caring parental interest in just about any child that she would meet. And all children that had the good fortune to spend time at Ellen's house would come away with memories of the overflowing box of toys that she always kept on hand for just such occasions. And it was not only children that Ellen enjoyed having in her home. She loved to entertain adult friends and family as well. She required only the tiniest excuse to justify the creation of a celebratory event and to have people over for great food and engaging conversation. Family getting together for Shabbat and holiday dinners had been a long tradition in the Chenchinsky clan, and Ellen took that model and developed it even further, much to the enjoyment of all those in her life. Perhaps the most memorable of these celebrations was the choice that Josefa and her fiancé Don made to hold their wedding at Ellen's house on Jackson Road. As Ellen entered the most recent stage of her life, there was both a strong sense of continuity with what had come before, as well as some new directions. Although she slowly reduced the amount of work she was doing in an official capacity, she simultaneously began to increase the number of volunteer hours that she put in. And many of the organizations for which she volunteered were similar to the places in which she had worked professionally. She gave much of her time to Jewish institutions such as Hadassah, schools for children with special needs like Liberty Elementary, or programs that combined these two prime commitments such as Segula. Much of the new direction in her life were the result of meeting her beloved significant other, Bill Manovich, about 10 years ago. Ironically, or perhaps appropriately, Ellen and Bill had initially met through a shidduch made by the husband of Ellen's cousin. Their relationship began with many phone conversations in which they discovered that they could talk about anything with one another. They both soon became deeply familiar with the route between Youngstown and the eastern suburbs as they spent more and more of their weekends together, enjoying each other's company, whether they were staying local or taking one of their many excursions out of town. After several years of living apart, Ellen realized that it made most sense for her to move to Youngstown so that she and Bill could be together on a more regular basis, which is exactly how things have been up until these last difficult and tragic months of Ellen's life. As we sit here wrestling with our grief, perhaps we can gain some amount of comfort in the knowledge that the spark which was the life of Ellen Chenchinsky-Deutsch touched so many along the way, leaving in its wake inspiration, connection, and profound dedication to the well-being of the Jewish community and the world as a whole. Her memory will certainly always be for a blessing. Zichrona livracha. At this time, I would like to invite Ellen's older daughter, Kelly, to come forward and to share a reading.
After a long time, the girl came back again. I'm sorry, girl, said the tree, but I have nothing left to give you. But apples are gone. My apples are gone. My teeth are too weak for apples, said the girl. My branches are gone, said the tree. You can't swing on them. I'm too old to swing on branches, said the girl. But the trunk is gone, said the tree. You can't climb. I'm too tired to climb, said the girl. I'm sorry, sighed the tree. I wish I could give you something, but I have nothing left. I am an old stump. I am sorry. I don't need very much now, said the girl, just a quiet place to sit and rest. I am very tired. Well, said the tree, straightening up herself as much as she could. An old stump is a good for sitting and resting. Come, girl, sit down, and rest. And the girl did, and the tree was happy.
Thank you, Kelly. At this time, I'd like to invite an old and close friend of Ellen's, Ellen Daly, to come forward to share her reflections.
Ellen always helped me write letters. Ellen always helped me write letters and a wonderful speech for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. She was such a beautiful writer. When she asked me if I could speak at her funeral, I asked her, how can I do that? You always help me with everything I write. And she answered, that's just how to begin your eulogy, Ellen. And that's what I'm doing. She asked me to put a little humor in it, and that wasn't going to be difficult because Ellen has such a wonderful sense of humor. When we were in third grade, I know a lot of you know this story already. When we were in third grade, we were buddies at Girl Scout camp. Our friend fell and broke her arm and got to go home. So Ellen and I were always trying to fall down the steps and break our arm so that we could get to go home early too. And we did not like living in tents, and outhouses were just not our thing. We got to go home 1 week early because we were such bad influences on the other campers. And we've known each other for 62 years, and it wasn't all laughter. We cried together and had some sad times also. We laughed about things that were not even funny. But for some reason, we could always find humor in anything. I guess we stayed little girls together, even into adulthood. We could just be silly together. We were even exchanging clothes up until we were age 70. And Bill and my husband used to say, I can't understand, teenagers do this. Ellen was my go-to person. I could talk to her about everyone, everything. She always had the greatest advice for me. She had so many friends. I had no idea how she could keep up so many close relationships. I asked her once how she found the time for me. But she said, I love you, Ellie, and I always will have time for you. We called each other Ellie. and her kids call me Ellie and Molly. I was so fortunate to have had her for such a long time. She was like a sister to me. I will miss her every day. And I wanted to say how Ellen loved the sun so much. And it's such a sunny, beautiful day today. And I believe she's shining down on all of us today.
Thank you so much, Ellen. I'd now like to invite Ellen's significant other, Bill Manovich, to come forward and to share some reflections.
Figure out what to call each other. So finally she said one day to somebody, and I guess this is okay, so, we just live in sin together. And that's Ellen. You know? She always had this sense of humor and open. What you saw is what you got. No question about it. Exactly whatever she thought. Never heard a bad word though. Which is amazing because I've met a lot of new people in Cleveland. She's made a lot of friends in Youngstown as well. Cards came in. I read a few of them. Everyone pretty much said the same thing. I knew you as soon as I met you. And that's basically it. So, I guess that's the best way to describe it.
Thank you. For our final remembrance today, we invite Ellen's younger daughter, Josefa, to come forward.
First, I want to thank my sister for speaking so beautifully. And Ellie, that was perfect. You didn't need her to write it for you this time. And Bill, thank you for speaking from the heart. I know that that's one of the things she loved about you, was your ability to do that. Now, I know when I walked up here, you all just asked yourselves, what did she just put on Ellen's casket? And it was an orange. And here's the story, as this is the original story written by Susanna Heschel. In the early 1980s, the Hillel Foundation invited me to speak on a panel at Oberlin College. While on campus, I came across a Haggadah that had been written by some Oberlin students to express feminist concerns. One ritual they devised was placing a crust of bread on the Seder plate as a sign of solidarity with Jewish lesbians. There's as much room for a lesbian in Judaism as there is for a crust of bread on the Seder plate. At the next Passover, I placed an orange on our family's Seder plate During the first part of the Seder, I asked everyone to take a segment of the orange, make the blessing over fruit, and eat it as a gesture of solidarity with Jewish lesbians and gay men and others who are marginalized within the Jewish community. I mentioned widows in particular. Bread on the Seder plate brings an end to Pesach. It renders everything chometz. And its symbolism suggests that being lesbian is being transgressive, violating Judaism. I felt that an orange was suggestive of something else, the fruitfulness for all Jews when lesbians and gay men are contributing and active members of Jewish life. In addition, each orange segment had a few seeds that had to be spit out, a gesture of spitting out, repudiating the homophobia that poisons too many Jews. When lecturing, I often mention my custom as one of many new feminist rituals that had been developed over the last 20 years. Somehow, though, the typical patriarchal maneuver occurred. My idea of an orange and my intention of affirming lesbians and gay men were transformed. Now the story circulates that a man stood up after the lecture I delivered and said to me, in anger, that a woman belongs on the bima as much as an orange on the Seder plate. My idea, a woman's words, are attributed to a man, and the affirmation of lesbians and gay men is simply erased. Isn't that precisely what's happened over the centuries to women's ideas? That was how Susanna Heschel wrote it in April of 2001. And so I brought an orange because every Passover, Mom told this story, or some version of it, and because a woman belongs on the bima as much as an orange belongs on a casket at a funeral. If only I were standing on a bima right now, it would really be perfect. I know people my age who've never been to a funeral, have never known anyone who died. And for those of you who don't know me, I have experienced a great deal of loss in my life. For those of you who do know me, you might remember that a friend in middle school took his own life. A couple friends in my high school years lost their lives in car accidents. In my first year of college, 4 friends were killed in a car accident. In my young adult life, a friend fell to her death while hiking in California. And I watched a friend die of cancer painfully because her partner did not respect her end-of-life wishes. These were the unusual losses. I've also gone to funerals of family members, funerals of family friends, funerals of friends' families. And though some people might not think it the same, I've lost many pets and helped animals at the end of their lives to live comfortably until they died. All of these experiences have added up, and if it were not for these experiences, I don't know that I would have made it through this last week. So here I am, not hardened from these experiences. Instead, I'm at peace with how I moved through each day of the last week. I know that I have done all that I could do, and that I was not always perfect. I felt and expressed anger, frustration, and sadness, but also joy, love, and happiness. I know in this moment I may feel more or less at ease than I will at other times this week. I know that tomorrow I may feel like I'm covered in darkness, and the day after filled with light. I know that there is no predicting how one will respond to a loss, and I know that the process of going through it is valuable and must be respected. What I have written is part of my process, and I hope it might in some small way help some of you as we mourn the loss of a great woman. Most of the following was written at Mom's bedside, the morning that started the day she was being transported to Menorah Park to have their hospice team compassionately help her to pass on peacefully and with as much dignity as possible. I knew it would be easier to write this when I was still somewhat clear-headed than when I might become lost in the loss of her. There are so many things to say and too many things to share. I will do my best to not have this last too long, and I apologize in advance for forgetting anything or anyone or not recognizing everyone and everything. You are all here because my mom was someone who made an impression on everyone who moved through her life. The children she taught and their parents, all of whom knew she had a gift of patience, inspiration, and a deep desire to help shape the minds of children who would become people who are contributing and compassionate members of society. Or the people she raised children with, who remained in her life long after all their children were grown. And the people she met in retirement, who she shared not only her memories with, but with whom she created new experiences. And I also want to say all the people she shared meals with. And that's a broad statement, but true. Because seriously, how many people in this room did not eat with her at some point? Even if it was only an ice cream cone, her favorite of favorite foods. Laughter was something she cherished and highly, highly recommended. There was never a situation when it was inappropriate to make a joke, but it did need to be preferably a good joke. It is part of why so many people were drawn to her. She made friends easily. She cherished new friends and old. She did what a person needs to do to foster and maintain friendships over decades. One of the things that made this easier for her was her love of the telephone. The trend of multiple lines in homes really made her quite happy. But that was nothing compared to the joy that came when the development of call waiting happened. And then who would have ever thought that there would be something better than the cordless phone? But there was a cell phone. Her phone could now go with her anywhere, as long as she could find the damn thing and figure out how to work it. She knew the value of family. She was the one who brought the different branches of her family together. I think of this as we approach Passover, because she embraced the idea that everyone should be welcome and included at the Seder table, even if they were sick of hearing about oranges. She raised me to be my own person, to think critically about the world, to take risks and accept my failures. Her mother warned her that raising children to think for themselves would create a child who didn't always listen. Grandma was 100% right. Mom knew she was right, and she did it just the same. And here I am, the person she let me grow to be. I became the person she trusted to make the hardest choices that one person can make for another, for their beloved parent. I'm honored to know that she trusted me so deeply. I made sure that she did not have to suffer any more than necessary. I advocated for her, just as she has always done for me. I must take a moment and acknowledge the love she knew from her friends, from her family, from her friends that are family, the love of her brother and sister-in-law, the love of her daughters, the unending love of a mother, and the love of her partner of 10 years, the man she lived in sin with, who stayed by her side, and who never abandoned the love that they shared. I love my mother. I love the things she taught me. I love the things she instilled in me. And I love that she let me be who I am. I will miss her. I will mourn her. I will treasure the memories of her. I will celebrate her. I will feel comfort, knowing many, many people will be doing the same. Thank you all for being here, for being a part of our lives, for sharing this loss and for continuing to celebrate life like she always did. Now I will read a poem that the family chose, specifically her brother and nephew. It is called Each of Us Has a Name. Each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given by our sins and given by our longings. Each of us has a name given by our enemies and given by our love. Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work. Each of us has a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death.
Thank you so much, Josefa. We're going to conclude the eulogy section actually with a musical prayer that Ellen would sing to her daughters at bedtime, the prayer Ose Shalom. And we're going to invite Noah Budin, an old friend and colleague, to come forward and to lead us in this prayer.
Ose Shalom Bimroma Ase Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Imru Amen Ose Shalom Bimroma Ase Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Imru Amen Ase Shalom 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 Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael 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 Ase Shalom 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 Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael.
Please rise for the chanting of El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, B'malot Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Harakia Masihirim, Et Nishmat Chaya Esther Miriam Bat Mordechai Umalka Shelcha Leolama. Ana Bal HaRachamim Hastireha Beseter Knafecha Leolamim Utzror Bitzror HaChaim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata V'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. God filled with mercy, dwelling in the heavens heights, bring proper rest beneath the wings of your Shekhinah, your divine presence, amid the ranks of the holy and the pure, illuminating like the brilliance of the skies the soul of Ellen Chenchinsky Deutsch, who has gone to her eternal place of rest. May you, who are the source of mercy, shelter her beneath your wings eternally, and bind her soul among the living, that she may rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. The family will receive friends following the burial at the Sherry Park Apartments, 2201 Acacia Park Drive, in the reception room until 8 p.m. this evening, tomorrow from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m., and again from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m., and on Wednesday from 5 p.m. until 8 p.m., this time in apartment 326 at the Sherry Park Apartments. Friends who wish to make a contribution may do so to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society.